Hello, welcome to Meet Me at the Movies. Noel T. Manning II here with Douglas Davidson, Darryl Manziel, and Thomas Manning. We are talking 2020, and I know what you're thinking. I know you're thinking, I don't want to talk about 2020 anymore. Well, too bad, because if you're tuned into this show, we're going to talk about some good things that happened in cinema. Now, this is part two of a very special episode of Meet Me at the Movies. It's actually episodes, I guess. So this will be a series. Would it be a limited series? I don't know if that's if a limited series means two or more. Anybody?
I feel like you need like about 7, 8.
Okay.
In order to call yourself a
Yeah,
limited
so
series.
we're not a limited series, but this is a two-part special. So it's the sequel to the Meet Me at the Movies 2020 flashback, where we talked about films or film moments that were worth remembering. Is that right? Am I getting that right?
Sounds good.
Okay. All right. Cool. All right. Well, the last episode, I did not get a chance to talk at all, so I thought I would talk for the rest of this time and let everybody just listen intently as if you care. So one of those things that really worked for me this past year, which was kind of odd, is I was fortunate enough to be involved in several interviews, a lot of Zoom interviews. And I can't say how fortunate enough I am that I've been able to do interviews over the past few years. It's been great, some that I never expected to happen. But this past year, there were a lot of Zoom interviews, and some were, well-known names, but some were not. And one of the ones that sticks out with me is a name that a lot of people may not be aware of. Caitlin Moran is from the UK. She's written books, and she wrote her first screenplay that was a semi-autobiographical film, How to Build a Girl. And she was absolutely hilarious, and we just talked and talked and talked, and she just was one of these people that you felt like after 5 minutes, you've known them your entire life, and you feel like you could just continue to speak with them. And that's how Caitlin was. And honestly, we could have talked for another 2 or 3 or 4 hours, but that was the one interview that stands out above all of the rest. And we're talking about even people that, like I said, Hollywood names that you would know, but hers just stands out. So I'm sorry, Gary Oldman and George Clooney, if you're watching, you didn't even hold a candle to Caitlin Moran. You're awesome in your own right, in your own way. You are. But you're no Caitlin Moran, because I know Caitlin Moran. So there you go. One of my moments from 2020.
I really like that movie too.
yeah, too. I don't even know who's next. Somebody help me out here.
Darryl.
Okay. Is it Darryl? Okay, Darryl.
Sure.
You're next, buddy.
Order.
Go for it, man.
I want to give a highlight to. I want to actually go back to Douglas in the last episode brought up Birds of Prey and a specific scene in Birds of Prey, and I kind of want to go back to just what that movie did. And we hear the phrase "representation matters" a lot, and that is, it's 2 simple words that mean a whole lot more when you put them back to back together. And seeing all sorts of just females, women, anybody who identifies as a woman, seeing just a number of really, badass chicks together doing badass stuff. It's good to see. We've gotten a number of the Avengers and the Bro movies, but this was one for them, and it was a fairly solid movie. I am not a fan of the portrayal of Black Mask and Ewan McGregor in that movie, but I understand what that movie means for people. So if I had to go ahead and kick mine off for this episode, definitely just seeing people be able to identify enough characters and a diverse enough cast of characters that you can't have one to pick out that's the one I identify with. That's the one that I identify with.
Yeah.
Representation matters, and I love that. And shout out to the egg sandwich. It resurged the love of the egg sandwich.
Awesome. Good job, Darryl. All right, Mr. Douglas, go for it, buddy.
Well, I agree. Girl gang movies, we need more of them. We absolutely do, particularly with the level of detail that went into the costume design and just the thought of everything with with Birds of Prey. The movie I wanted to bring up, it's another specific scene. It's, without getting into details, it comes from a controversial film, if you will, Promising Young Woman, by Emerald Fennell. The performance from her lead actor, Carey Mulligan, is one of the best performances of the year. It honestly is. It's complex. There's a balancing act that is going, but on so many different levels, to explore a woman who is experiencing survivor's guilt, having had a friend go through an assault and not survive it. In the end of this movie, we were talking about it before we began recording this. I do agree with Thomas, who said that he thinks it's meant to provoke. I agree with that. There are, unfortunately, women in my circle who could identify with this story in a number of different ways. And the fact that that happens is frustrating beyond belief. And so I don't think there was a way to end this story any other way that would provide a satisfying ending at all. And even though this ending that it has does not satisfy people, because as one critic wrote, Alessandra, I forget your last name, Alessandra, I'm so sorry. But she wrote that give us our fiction, right? Give us our happy ending in our fiction. But I don't think for this character there was a happy ending to be had. And so the ending as it plays out is so perfect and makes sense when you look at the different levels that the character and the story goes through. So that film, that ending in particular, it's just, I raised my fist in a yes kind of way that is just glorious. And I hope more people see it.
Yeah, I think there were so many films and stories that connected to the power of woman in 2020, and there are several of them that we could go down. And when I was talking about Caitlin Moran earlier, I mean, that story was the power of a woman making her choices, coming of age, but making her choices no matter what anybody else said. So yeah, man, what in that film, absolutely. Thomas, dive in, buddy, with what's next on your list, my friend, as we look back at 2020, the good things the things that we remembered and want to remember relating to film.
Oh yes, I'm going to talk about the final arc in Star Wars: The Clone Wars in season 7. Disney Plus brought it back for one final season. They'd had all these concepts and had some conceptual animatics laying around for like however many years, probably 5 years or so, 5 to 7 years, and finally brought it back for one final season, filled in a lot of the gaps and a lot of the context. So the final arc, these final 4 episodes were called The Siege of Mandalore. And it blended beautifully with some of the prequels, especially Revenge of the Sith, parallel storylines and timelines, and provided a lot of great context and detail and filled in some of the gaps that had been missing there, and almost retrospectively made the prequels more impactful. The Star Wars prequels, they have their fair share of issues, but I think the story was always really fascinating, and just George Lucas's creative vision of the overarching story, and then to have this final season, specifically this final arc, just kind of put the finishing touches on everything that Lucas had laid the groundwork for, was really, really awesome. I'd been watching Star Wars: The Clone Wars for I think it premiered like 12 years ago when I was in 3rd grade. So now here I am, junior. Am I a junior in college? Something along those lines. So here, basically 12 years later, seeing it come full circle and being completed was just really fulfilling.
Yeah, and the Star Wars universe just continues to expand. I mean, we saw season 2 of The Mandalorian and spinoffs coming out of that as well. Yeah, Star Wars is alive and well. It is alive and well. And I will go into a quick intermission as we talk more about the films and the moments of 2020. And we talked about this, Darryl and Douglas, that and Thomas, I'm not going to leave you out, that cinema is more than just what you see on the big screen now. I mean, there are so many cinematic moments that happen in the online world through series that typically would have been TV network series that are now streaming. So there's the merging of that entertainment, that visual art form. And so right here on Meet Me in the Movies, we talk about so many aspects of those. Well, Douglas and Darryl and Thomas, thanks for joining us right here on Meet Me in the Movies. We're going to take a quick intermission. We'll come back and I'll give you another one of my thoughts of 2020, a standout moment for me, maybe one that you're not familiar with, or maybe one you don't even care about. But please, for the sake of Darryl, Douglas, and Thomas, come back. Don't do it for me. Do it for them. Do it for them. Start off your new year right. We'll take a quick intermission right here on Meet Me at the Movies.
They're gonna put me in the movies. They're gonna make a big star out of me.
Hey everyone, I'm Tim Wisher, welding instructor at Cleveland Community College, and today I'd like to take a little time and tell you about what we do here. Welders are in demand. We offer a certificate program and we offer a diploma program. It takes about a year to come through our program. We offer morning and evening classes here at CCC. We have the lowest student to instructor ratio in the state. We do real life simulation. We do API 1104 downhill pipe welding. We also do D11 structural steel code and ASME welding as well. We have AWS certified welding inspectors on staff. If you want to learn more about our welding program, you can give me a call directly at 704-669-4077 or on the community college website at clevelandcc.edu.
Chef Paul Prudhomme once said, "You don't need a silver fork to eat good food." Well, on Cleveland County Kitchen, we don't have a silver fork, but we sure do serve up lots of good food. Hi, I'm Deborah Blanton. I hope you'll join me for the next Cleveland County Kitchen. Each month, we offer a complete farm-to-table experience. We visit local growers, we learn about nutrition, and wrap things up with wonderful meals prepared by our guest chefs. It's a lot of fun. I hope you'll join me for the next Cleveland County Kitchen.
They're gonna put me in the movies. They're gonna make a big star out of me.
Welcome back to Meet Me at the Movies. I am Noel T. Manning II, and no, this is just how I always am. Hanging out with Douglas Davidson, Darryl Mansell, and Thomas Manning. We are talking about the good things or the things that we remember relating to cinema in 2020. This is part 2 of a very special 2-part special. Don't ask me to say that again. I'll give you a moment that not many people will remember. It was one of these films that flew under the radar. It was a short film, and but it just hit me at the right time. The movie is called John Bronco, and it's this biopic. It's a very unique satirical biopic about this pitchman for the Ford Bronco. And the crazy thing is, this movie was crazy on so many different levels. Tons of cameos, a lot of old stock footage and stock photos that were provided by the Ford Motor Company archives, and they actually endorsed this film. Walton Goggins stars as John Bronco, and he is absolutely hilarious. And it's actually one of my favorite films of the year. I wanted more. Because it was a short film, but there were just so many aspects of it that I liked. And so I'm just giving this my most creative biopic of the year, John Bronco. Did anybody else get a chance to see that?
No, unfortunately not. And anything with Walton Goggins, I want to see.
Yeah, I remember seeing the trailer when it came out, and I was like, I'm all in, and then just hadn't gotten around to it yet. Thank you for reminding me. I appreciate that.
It is well worth it. It's just, like I said, a very short film, but it's one that there were so many times I was laughing, and I actually, I would go back and watch specific scenes just to make sure I was hearing the dialogue right, because there were so many funny lines. And he is pitch perfect on this movie. The movie's called John Bronco, so if you get a chance to check it out, highly, highly recommend that. All right. Mr. Darryl Mansell, what have you got, my friend?
I'm going to make myself a pivot over to my favorite performance for the year. And for me, that comes from Delroy Lindo in The Five Bloods. That is an incredibly layered, nuanced, haunting performance of a person who has not been able to let go of the past, who has demons that he needs excised. It's heartbreaking to see a person who does not know they have problems, but it's even more heartbreaking to see a person who knows that they have problems and still refuse to get help for those problems. And that's the kind of character that we're dealing with in the Five Bloods. He is it's an ensemble cast, but he is very much the leader of everything. And just seeing how the detritus of the Vietnam War and how it has affected him over the course of the years since leading up to present day.
Thomas, we're going to Douglas next. Is that correct?
If you want to talk to Thomas, you talk to Thomas a lot.
Well, I was just going to say Douglas, go for it, man. I need to take a nap, and I'm going to go do that. So if you would, just wake me up when it's my turn.
Not a problem. Not a problem. We talk about favorites. I've talked about scenes. I've talked about significant moments or performances. Darryl has certainly jumped around in more technical aspects, which has just been wonderful to hear from him. So far, I really have to say my favorite film of this year, and I wanted to make sure to mention, is actually a short film. It's funny you brought up a short film. There you go. It's available currently on Netflix. It's called If Anything Happens, I Love You. It's 12 minutes long. It broke me. Like, ugly crying at my desk because I couldn't set it up anywhere else at the time. Ugly crying. I was like, oh, it's 12 minutes. I'll be fine. No, broken. I got up, went and hugged my son. It was devastating. Directed and written by Will McCormick and Michael Govier. Will McCormick, for those of you that don't know, he is an actor. In Plain Sight, I think he showed up in that along with his sister Mary McCormick, and he's been in some other stuff as well. But it's a story about loss and grief, and in particular parental loss and grief. And it is something that hopefully I will never experience. But even though the way that the story is told, you can see where it's going, you find yourself still getting just wrecked by it. And I honestly can't recommend it enough, just for the approach of telling the story, particularly in the fact that there's no dialogue. It is all music and images, and it is so far the best thing I've seen all year.
Yeah, the power of storytelling, visual storytelling without dialogue, when done well, you don't need anything else. And Thomas and I got a chance to experience some of those through the Real Film Festival. On the screening committee, there were a few of those that just told powerful stories, limited or no dialogue. And when it's done well, man, it's absolutely incredible. I still think back to one of my favorite all-time film moments is that segment in Up, the animated film, where you're seeing the life of this couple, and it's just unfolding with music and images. And man, talk about heartbreaking, but one that tells just an incredible life story, and it does it without dialogue. That is the power of film, the power of cinema. Absolutely. All right, Thomas, dive in, buddy, with what you may have to talk about right here on Meet Me at the Movies.
So the miniseries The Queen's Gambit on Netflix, it is directed by Scott Frank, he's worked with James Mangold in the past. I think he wrote the screenplay for Logan and Wolverine. But starring Anya Taylor-Joy in the lead role. It's just a perfectly refined production from top to bottom. It's about this girl who grows up and becomes a chess prodigy. She's like from an orphanage, and then eventually she's like a chess world champion. But just the story and everything about technical aspects, it just blew me away. I was just like breathless watching it. It's a 7-episode miniseries. It's one that once you start, you don't want to stop.
So that's a miniseries. So it's got 7 episodes.
It is.
So this is not.
That's correct.
Way to bring that back around.
Yeah. But the cinematography in this show reminded me a lot of some Hitchcock cinematography and De Palma cinematography, with the incredible tracking shots with the dollies and the cranes. You got the split diopter and deep focus.
Well, I will say this next one for me, is one that is it's not so much a happy one, but you talked about Chadwick Boseman earlier, and my favorite final performances, looking at him in both The Five Bloods and also Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, I'm reminded of what an amazing talent he is and was. And when you look at his body of work, it's pretty incredible. And there was so much more that I think we could have seen from him. Well, we do have time for each of us to dive in and or wade in or walk in or even do a triple flip in if you want.
Triple Lindy's only. Triple Lindy's only.
That's it. That's it. I'm a backflip kind of guy. I mean, I could do that pretty good and only hit my head on the diving board like a couple times. So that may be what's wrong with me. I don't really know. But
that only scratches the surface of what's wrong with you.
All right. Well, Darryl, let's see how you're going to wrap things up with us right here on Meet Me in the Movies, the 2020 flashback special, Part Deux.
Part Deux. Talked about a lot of favorites, a lot of highlights, a lot of this, a lot of that. One thing I wanted to give focus to was, for me, my favorite underrated movie of the year, and it is The Photograph. I do believe the very first time I came on Meet Me at the Movies early this year, I spoke about The Photograph. I just seen it a day or two ago. Was the Valentine's Day movie of choice, a February release right before everything kind of shut down. Spoke about it, me and Douglas on the Cinnamon. It is my number 10 for the top 10 of the year, 10 or 9, one of those two. Very, very rarely do we get to see a representation of a great African-American love story. That's not something ridiculously Tyler Perry. And that's not somehow a joke or a mockery. And what we do is usually something low budget, limited release, doesn't get a whole lot of shine. But you have Issa Rae, who's coming into her own with her own show. You have Lakeith Stanfield, who has made his announcements to the world as your two leads. And it is just a beautiful exploration of the culture and of African-American love. And what does that mean when one is a little bit afraid to open up and the other one is a little bit too eager to hop into something, and how does that play out? It's a beautiful movie. It's a beautiful exploration of two people.
Much like here on Meet Me in the Movies, we're all trying to find our love for each other on this show, and it's fading every second. Every conflict and crisis, we just can't get over it. So with that in mind, I'm going to go to panel 2 and Douglas Davidson in the Brady Bunch panel number 2.
Well, you mentioned this a little bit in part 1 of this 2-part limited series, miniseries special.
Keep going.
What have you? What have you? You'd mentioned this, and I would certainly be remiss if we were to discuss anything involving cinema with 2020, any sort of moment. And for me, being able to share my first ever trip to LA to explore not even the birthplace of cinema, because that's New Jersey, but
Kevin Smith is the birthplace of cinema.
New Jersey, yeah, New Jersey and New York. Then it moved to Hollywood. And then everybody in New York went, oh, well, I guess we're moving into Hollywood. But being able to explore that area with Darryl, being able to share something like being at the New Beverly with the three of you, standing around at the CCAs and going, oh, wow. Almost getting knocked over by Quentin Tarantino, those kinds of things. These kinds of memories. Being at the Academy's library and looking through screenplays. Not even before we got to the screenplays, I still have a list of books that I plan to research from and read at some point. But just the wealth and love of cinema and being able to share it with all of you.
All right, Thomas, you have a final thought relating to films from 2020 or a film moment?
Oh, yes. I'm going to mention the final shot of The Sound of Metal with Riz Ahmed. It's kind of hard to describe the emotional resonance of it for someone who hasn't seen the movie. But if you have seen it, you understand precisely just the emotional impact of it all. It's really one of the best performances this year that I've seen with Riz Ahmed, and just heartbreaking, gut-wrenching, just one of the most, just one of the most impactful, significant that I've seen this year. But it's one of those moments that kind of reminds you to just be and just exist as you are. And with the way the world is going this year, especially, but just in general with our society, with how busy everybody is and how little time we have to just reflect and sit there with what we have. That final shot just kind of reminds you of the importance of that. And it's just one, if you have the chance to watch The Sound of Metal, I would highly recommend it. And just that final scene is one that's going to stick with me for a really long time.
Cool. Well, that leads me to my final thought, which is probably the strangest and most meta film moment of 2020 for me. It also relates to a virtual press conference. There have been quite a few of those, and I want to thank Netflix actually for setting up so many of those and doing such a magnificent job in preparing those. They would send out these RSVPs and they would invite you, and then if you wanted to join, you would RSVP, and you could also, it would ask you, do you want to ask a question? And so you would key in your question and submit it. And then they would have a moderator that may choose your question. You never knew. And I was fortunate that a few of mine got chosen over the course of award season, including one that really sticks with me. There is a guy, what's this Mankiewicz guy who hosts this movie show? What's his name?
Oh, Ben Mankiewicz.
Duels Ben Mankiewicz.
Ben Mankiewicz was hosting a Mank film Q&A, and actually Mank was his grandfather, which I did not know, and that was pretty cool. David Fincher was part of this interview, and I had a question for Fincher relating to the screenplay of Mank, which was written by Fincher's dad, Jack. So there's the whole strange meta moment when the whole question went out there. And I got to say, when it was being asked and answered, I was like, okay, this is just a cool moment. I'm going to remember this. I'm going to write it down. I'm going to tweet about it so I can remember it whenever, I don't remember pretty much anything in 2021. So there you go. The most incredible, strangest meta moment for me for 2020. We really appreciate everybody spending time with us. Darryl Menzel, Douglas Davidson, Thomas Manning. I'm Noel Manning. This has been Me at the Movies, and it has been a limited 2-part series. That is true. That part is true. On looking at the good things or the things that we want to remember from 2020 relating to cinema. You guys have any final thoughts or comments before I take us out with a movie quote of the week?
Hopefully 2021 is movie-wise just as good as, if not better than 2020.
Sorry about the Green Knight, Darryl. Yeah.
July 30th. I just got to make it live until July 30th.
Well, let's just hope we can find a way, at least during the latter part of 2021, to make it back into theaters safely and securely, and embrace the way cinema was created for us. Movie quote of the week. This comes from the film Serendipity, one of my favorite romantic comedies. Not really a romantic comedy, but a romance film. Life's a mess. It's chaos personified. And so once again, that kind of ties into this show. This is chaos personified. So until next time, and I'm Noel Manning. I do appreciate you, Douglas and Darryl, for spending time with us. And Thomas, thank you too. And until next time, for C19 TV and for WGWG and for Meet Me at the Movies, that's a wrap.
Happy trails to